Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of How Much Land Does a Man Need? A short story by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy is the great 19th century Russian novelist, short story, and essay writer. This story, How Much Land Does a Man Need? Was published in 1886. Later on, it was translated into English in 1906 by Lewis and Almer Made, and it was published in a collection of Tolstoy's short story titled 23 Tales in 1906. Now, this How Much Land Does a Man Need actually is a Russian folk tale. Folk tale means a story which was told orally from generation to generation. And this story is about the greediness of a peasant for land and what happened after it and what was the fate he saw because of his greediness. Tolstoy had written the story in 9 parts. In part 1, we find a woman who comes to visit her younger sister, and this younger sister lives in the country. This elder sister is married to a tradesman and is settled in a town. And she talks about all the advantages of the town life, like having fine clothes, good food, trips to the theatre, and other things. Now, this younger sister is married to a village peasant, and she says that she and her husband may never grow rich, but they will always have enough, whereas she has seen rich people often lose all they have. And she feels that the city surrounds people with temptations from the devil. Her husband, Paham, is lying near a stove, and he hears all what they are saying, and he feels that his wife is correct, but at the same time, he also has a feeling that he does not have enough land. Only if he had more land, even the devil would not be able to tempt him. But actually, the devil is sitting in the same room, but no one is able to see the devil. And he hears this man boasting that if he has little more land, even the devil cannot tempt him. And so it decides to give Paham more land and bring him under its control. In part 2, a lady who has a large estate close to Paham hires a steward. And this steward finds the peasants whose cattle all come into their estate. Paham is really annoyed because he has to pay a lot of fine to him because his cattle go into his estate. This lady suddenly decides to sell the land, and the peasants try to arrange for their commune to buy it. Now the devil comes there and causes them to disagree among themselves about how to buy this estate. And in the end, the land is sold individually to those peasants who can afford to buy the estate. Paham somehow raises enough money to buy 40 acres. He is now a landowner and he really enjoys a good harvest. He is very happy. In part 3, Paham's happiness is spoiled because now the cattle belonging to some of the neighboring peasants come into his land and stray. And because of this, his yield is affected, plants are affected. Somehow Paham tolerates this for some time. But since the cattle come again and graze in his land, he decides to teach the peasants a lesson. So, like how that lady who was the previous owner charged fine to the people whose cattle came and grazed in their estate, he also forces these peasants to pay him fine. Now the peasants are very angry about this, but they are not able to do anything. And once what happens is, about 5 of his lime trees are destroyed. And so Paham accuses a man named Simon for causing this. And he goes to Simon's homestead, but he is not able to find any proof to prove that only Simon had caused this destruction. And then he goes to the court and there is a trial and then a retrial. And Simon is acquitted for lack of evidence because he is not able to prove that Simon only was the cause for the destruction of the 5 lime trees. And Paham accuses the judges of taking bribes and quarrels with all his neighbors. During this period, Paham learns that many peasants in the village are moving away, and this gives him a feeling that now he will be able to buy more land, because the peasants who are leaving the place are selling their land at a very cheap rate because they have to vacate faster. At that time, a peasant who is passing through the village tells him that many people have been moving to an area hundreds of miles away on the other side of the river Volga. Each peasant has received 25 acres of high quality land. Now Paham's interest is aroused. He visits a new settlement in the summer, and when he sees the land, he is very pleased. In the fall, he returns home and sells whatever he has. And in the spring, he and his family go to the new community. In part 4, when he arrives, the commune of a large village gives Paham and his sons 125 acres for their own use. Now Paham has much arable land, and there is also plenty of room for him to pasture his cattle. But he soon desires to grow more wheat than his land can accommodate. To solve the problem, he rents land from a dealer, but this requires transporting the wheat he grows there more than 10 miles to the village. Not only that, his crops are good, and he continues the arrangements for 3 years. By then, he has grown tired of renting and wants to own land instead. He negotiates with a peasant and is about to buy 1300 acres from him, but at that time, a passing dealer returning from the distant Bashkir land tells Paham that he brought 1300 acres there for very little money. And the dealer gave the Bashkir chief some gifts, and they were happy to sell their land to him because they received a gift from him. Now Paham realized that if he were to do the same, he would get 10 times as much land for less money than he was supposed to pay this peasant. And in part 5, he leaves his wife behind, and he takes a servant along with them and travels more than 300 miles to this Bashkirs. This journey itself takes him almost a week. They find the Bashkirs living in a felt covered tents by a river. And these Bashkirs do not cultivate the land, but they own cattle and horses. The women milk the cows, and from the milk they make a drink called kumis. The men like to eat mutton, play their pipes, and drink kumis. They greet Paham warmly, giving him food and drink, and Paham offers them gifts including tea and wine. They are very happy by this gesture, and they ask Paham what he likes best among all the things they have, so they can also give him what he wants. Paham says that he is very impressed with their land, which is much better than the land where he comes from. The Bashkirs talk among themselves for a while and then offer him as much land as he desires. But anyway, they have to confirm this with their chief. In part 6, the Bashkir chief arrives, and to him also Paham gives tea and a fine dressing gown. When his men tell him about the proposed land deal, the chief readily agrees to it. And at Paham's request, he also says he will issue a deed to the land, so there will be no disputes about it. The chief then tells Paham that the price of the land will be 100 rubles a day. Paham is puzzled by what that means. What is that 100 rubles a day? Then the chief explains that he can take as much land as he wants, but that land should be some land which he walks around in one day. So how much land, how much distance he is going to walk in one day will be his land. But after reaching a particular point, he has to come back to the same starting point, and within one day. Otherwise, this 1000 rubles will not be returned to him. That is, he will have to forfeit his 1000 rubles. Now, when Paham asks how will they know that how much land he has covered, the chief tells him that he has to make a mark with a spade from time to time. So they will know that he has crossed all these places. And when he decides that this much land is enough for me, he has to make a turn. And before turning, he is to dig a hole and pile of the turf around it. So they'll know where this pile is there, till that will be his land. Now in part 7, Paham plans to walk a circuit of 35 miles the following day. He lies awake thinking of what he will do with the land. And because of this, he is unable to sleep, and he goes to sleep only in the morning and has a dream in which he hears someone outside the tent laughing. And in the dream, he goes outside and discovers that the man laughing heartily is the chief. When Paham asks him why he is laughing, he sees that the man is now the dealer who told him about the bushcase. Paham is about to ask the man a question when he sees that he is not the dealer but the peasant from long ago who told him about the land on the other side of the Volga. Paham then sees that the figure is the devil and that in front of him lies a dead man, and this dead man is no one but Paham himself. So we understand that it is the devil who has come in the form of all these people in his life and has guided him to his greed. Frightened, he wakes up. Now he realizes that dawn is approaching, and he gets up and goes to the bushkis, telling them it is time to start measuring the land, because he feels that if he starts early, he can cover much more land before he could return back by evening. Now in part 8 begins with Paham and the bushkis assembling on a hillock. Paham sets off towards the rising sun, digging holes and piling up pieces of turf from time to time. He walks roughly 3 miles as the day heats up. And because of the heat, he takes off his undercoat and continues. And then he takes his boots off, which makes it easier to walk, and he can walk fast. He walks for what he thinks is another 3 miles, digs a hole, and turns to the left. At noon, he sits and rests for a while, after which he continues walking for a time. When he makes another turn, he notices that the bushkis who are waiting for him on the hillock look like they are a long away in distance. So he decides to make the third side of his land shorter. But he gets worried when he realizes he had walked less than 2 miles on that side. He still has 10 miles to go, yet the sun is already sinking in the sky. He decides to hurry back in a straight line, even though that will make his land lopsided. That is, one side will be lengthy, the other side will be short. In part 9, Paham is tired and finds it hard to walk. But nonetheless, he walks faster and faster, and then he starts running. And as he is running, he is not able to carry his coat, boots and flask, so he throws them away. And he hears the bushkis also yelling and shouting and asking him to come fast. And he notices that the sun is close to the horizon. Paham remembers his dream and thinks he may die. When the sun sinks below the horizon, his despair increases, but then he has a last hope. Now the bushkis are on higher ground and they can still see the sun. So he runs to the top of the hillock before collapsing and falling down. And as he falls forward, he manages to touch the chief's cap in which his money is lying, and the chief declares that the Paham has acquired a lot of land. However, when Paham's servant runs to him, he finds that Paham is dead. Then the servant digs a grave and buries him. After striving for so long to acquire land, all the land Paham needs now is just 6 feet, and that also to get him buried. This is a story which tells about human greed and how man loses himself to his greed. It's a beautiful and a very successful and a famous short story by Leo Tolstoy. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.